By the early 1990s, Harry Nilsson, a man once hailed as the American Beatle by Lennon and McCartney, was a ghost of his former self. The golden voice that soared through Without You and danced mischievously in Coconut had grown hoarse, gravelly. Decades of hard living, vodka, cigarettes, and grief had carved deep lines into his once boyish face. The music world had long since moved on. Nilsson, ever the outsider, never toured, never played the fame game, and had long been relegated to the shadows of his own legend. But he was still burning, fiercely, desperately, with the need to be heard one last time. 1993, the heart attack that changed everything. That year, Nilsson collapsed. His heart, battered from years of indulgence, nearly gave out. Doctors told him he had suffered a massive heart attack and should count his days carefully. But Nilsson, stubborn to the bone, refused to quietly fade. Facing his mortality, he made one final vow: to complete one more album, a comeback, a legacy for his children, redemption through song. He began making rounds, reaching out to friends, producers, and even old adversaries. He was frail, winded, but more determined than ever. The sessions were sporadic and gritty. His voice was no longer silk, it cracked and strained, but it carried new weight. The innocence was gone, replaced by urgency. Every note felt like a plea, every lyric a confession. In a moment of poetic defiance, Nilsson handwrote a letter to RCA Records, the label that had once celebrated him and later abandoned him. In shaky script, he begged them to let him back in, to give him one last chance. "I owe you an album," he wrote. "Let me give you that album. Let me close the book properly." RCA ignored him. The final recording sessions. Despite the rejection, Nilsson pressed on. From a small studio in Los Angeles, he recorded what would become Lost and Found, a haunting collection of songs that reflected everything he had been through: love, loss, friendship, fame, and the unbearable passing of time. Witnesses to those sessions described a haunting atmosphere. Nilsson sitting at the microphone, a bottle of water in hand, voice shaking as he whispered verses that seemed ripped from his soul. He sang not as a star, but as a father, a husband, a man running out of time. There was no glamour, only truth. January 15, 1994. Just a few days after finishing the rough mixes of the album he'd fought so hard to record, Harry Nilsson died in his sleep from heart failure at his home in Agoura Hills, California. He was 52. The world barely noticed. Newspapers printed small obituaries. The radio stations that once played him endlessly stayed silent. But in that silence was something sacred. Nilsson, who lived fast and burned bright, had gone out on his own terms, with one last song on his lips. Years later, the demos from those final sessions were rediscovered and posthumously released as Lost and Found. The album is raw, aching, and beautiful, a time capsule of a man making peace with his past. In those final fragile recordings, Nilsson reminds the world legends don't die, they echo. And Harry Nilsson, madcap genius, tragic clown, tender balladeer, left behind an echo that still rings, soft and haunting, in the quiet corners of music history.